This is Andrew Tate, the leader of the Bruv Party and the future Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Join me, if you will, for a quick trip down memory lane to Great Britain of the 1960s. Masculinity was thriving, and it kept the nation in a safe embrace. Every man from this generation remembers fighting in the bloodiest war in European history, a war for our sovereignty. Our home, the British Isles, produced the finest manufacturing goods in the world. The streets were safe to walk. As recently as 12 years ago, we were the 7th safest country in Europe. Nothing to write home about, but a far cry from the England that we suffer today. Our politicians were well-read, studious men who understood their job was to serve the people of Great Britain. Back then, the NHS was in its infancy, founded in 1948 for the sole purpose of providing the British people with the healthcare they needed. The British people, not the world. Men went out to work in the offices of London, the farms of Lancashire, or the mines of Devon and Cornwall, and on that salary, they could house a family, keep a wife, and raise children. But our empire was collapsing, given away to the natives of the countries we once ruled. Why? Back then it was asserted that these lands, India, the Caribbean, Uganda, rightfully belonged to the native people who inhabited them before British rule. Rightly or wrongly, this was the assumption, and we saw our monarch lose dominion over these places one by one. So I ask you, have we forgotten this simple lesson? The lesson that saw us dissolve and give away the greatest empire ever known to mankind? If these lands were somehow God-given to the people who lived there before the English arrived, what relationship does that give the Englishman to his own rainy little island? If this assertion holds true, where does the Englishman stand? If the colonies had God-given rights to their land, surely the Englishman has a God-given right to his. We have been told by the establishment parties that although this was true for our colonies, it's not true for us. The countries of the United Kingdom, it seems, our native homelands, are not actually our God-given property at all. They are simply an economic zone that anybody can visit, exploit, and extract from. At 40 years of age, in my own lifetime, I have seen the United Kingdom move from what looked like a managed decline into an outright downward spiral, beyond the control or measure of anybody even attempting to steer the ship. Where men once conducted themselves with honor and integrity, where a fistfight and a handshake could end the wildest of pub brawls, we now see knives plunged into chests and throats. And violence is no longer just for our squabbling pub crowd, but for our women, our children, our little girls, and anybody who is crazy or brash enough to wear a mildly expensive watch in our once great capital. As a young man, I still remember terms like ladylike being pushed as a cultural norm. Now we have a world that normalizes a mishmash of masculine and feminine traits in both men and women, with our ladies masquerading as butch, belching, masculine caricatures and celebrated for scandalous, whorish behaviors. The men of Great Britain, once the most feared fighting force on the planet, have become sniveling little effeminate cowards, happy to be conquered and ruled. When once we were happy to see a foreigner who had integrated into our society, a Pakistani shopkeeper, a Caribbean restaurateur, or an Indian accountant, we now stare into a sea of faces and cannot spot a single Anglo-Saxon, a single person of the type which built this entire nation. Many schools in the UK do not have a single white student. These schools are funded and paid for by a state which was built off the back of 1,000 years of the native Englishman's blood, sweat, and tears. The sprinkle of exotic culture that added charm and a flavor to the dish that was the UK has now overwhelmed the senses to the point where all of the individual flavors are no longer distinguishable on the palate. The smiling face of my local shopkeeper with his turban on his head, happy to see me as a young man, seemed normal, healthy even. But who are these foreigners we see today? Well, I do not know. Keir Starmer doesn't know. The government doesn't know. Nobody knows. Men from any place on earth who have ditched their passports into the English Channel, a channel which has served as our successful barrier against foreign invaders since 1066. I've seen menacing yellow eyes on dark hooded men on the corners of London's most famous streets, quietly appraising the value of goods and measuring the softness of the target. What went wrong?